After making yesterday's video on the issues to do with the Dalek type of compost bin, I thought it might be time to actually harvest this one, as there was a worm. We found a worm yesterday down in the very heavily compacted area at the bottom of the bin, so I thought maybe now is a good time to harvest it. The depression I made yesterday, when I took a handful of the material out for the video, overnight 2 slugs have moved in. And not only have they moved in, but they've also laid their eggs in that depression, which you can see there. There's another worm, so evidence that there are worms working about 3 foot down in very, very heavily compacted, almost finished material, which according to the textbooks, of course, they don't do. Now, just a quick word about the lid. Very often if you look at your Dalek style of bin and think, oh, the worms have all gone, have a look on the lid, because if the sides are moist and the worms can move around easily, they'll very often take themselves up as far as the lid, and there's a lip around the edge of that lid, and if you run your hand along there you'll find clumps of worms. Now, not a lot has changed in that bin since yesterday. Yesterday the sides were dry, today they're very wet. All I can think is it's the direct sun it got this morning made the plastic sweat, and of course the worms took advantage. Now there's the first shovelful of material out of the bottom of the bin, and we're already finding worms. First bin full. Once I got it out and broke it up, it's actually lovely, soft, very earthy smelling material. And if you take a look here, these are the holes at the bottom for drainage and ventilation, which get blocked up very easily, of course. But as long as the material is okay, excess water will drain through. If they were covered with plastic or thick layers of cardboard, that might create an issue in slowing the drainage down at least. So that's the compacted material. That's how compacted it is, that when I've taken the first bin load out, it hasn't moved. It's self-supporting. And this is where the material is going to go. This is the harvest from a couple of months ago from the same bin. I haven't done anything to it. I haven't sifted it. You can see how fine the particles are and how small it is. This is because the psychrophilic bacteria, which are the bacteria that work at much lower temperatures than the mesophilic or thermophilic bacteria, will carry on working the material. So if you've got plenty of time and lots of patience, and you don't need your finished product direct from the bin straight away, you just store it, keep it moist, keep it aerated, and the psychrophilic bacteria will break it down better than any sieve will. You'll end up with very fine, lovely material to work with. So that's the finished material in the first bin that I've taken out. You can see it's got a lovely texture to it. Once we've broken it up a bit, it's quite fine and crumbly. The moisture content is just about right, and I'm still finding worms. I think all in all in that first bin I pulled out about 10 worms. Now these are quite young worms, that's a juvenile, and this particular worm looks like it's not long hatched from its cocoon. So obviously there's worm cocoons in there as well as worms, and they're hatching. You can see the baby there. So yeah, the cocoons won't hatch if the conditions aren't right. So obviously there's enough material still there at the bottom, and even though it's so heavily compacted, the cocoons are obviously hatching. So that's another small clump of worms I found. Now there's two milk bottle tops. We had an issue with milk going missing at the house, and quite clearly the worms have been stealing it. That's a better look at the compost that I've just taken out. Still finding worms. So all I'm going to do now is spread this into this loose brick container I built. The idea of having loose bricks three sides around is that there's plenty of air can get through to the vermicompost to help with drying it out slowly, but also keeping the microbes aerated, so there's still plenty of oxygen getting into the material. Still finding worms. And that's the second bin. It's a little bit more than half full, and that's all I'm going to take out now, because that's all the brick container will hold. Again, the same consistency as the first bin. Once it's broken up, it's very crumbly, very fine, and has a lovely earthy smell to it. Some eggshells there which haven't broken down. If you grind the eggshells up, the worms will consume them. They love them because they'll use them to break food down in their gizzards. But if you break the shells up roughly and leave them in big lumps, they will break down in the compost, and they will add calcium to the finished product, but they take so much longer doing it that way. I'm just going to switch the light on now, and that's the tunnel I've made to the other side. You can see how compacted it is, because it's even though I've dug a bin and a half out, it's still self-supporting. Lots of eggshells protruding there. So I'm not going to knock this down. I'm going to let gravity and time do that for me. In the next couple of days, that will just collapse in on itself, and the level of the bin will drop. And there's an escapee trying to get out of the bin, going backwards for some strange reason. Worms really are a law unto themselves, so I'll just put him back. And there's a snail having a poop in the bin. You see the poop, it's green, and the reason it's green is that snail has been eating the green egg carton that's in the bin, so that's why his poop is green. I'm just going to remove him and take this little escapee and put him back. There's the green egg carton that the snail has obviously been eating. Now, this is the leaves along the side, and I'm just going to look for escapees. That's the bin sitting on the bricks, like I mentioned in yesterday's video. It'll allow for air to get in at the bottom and drainage. And if I move these leaves away, you will see some worms there. This is the idea of leaving leaves around the bin, is that you will get escapees from any bin. But if they have a place to go to that's quite near the bin, and it's comfortable for them, which means it's dark, it's protected, it's moist, and it's got a food source, they'll stay there. So they're quite easy to round up. And what's on the ground there is compacted pure worm castings. They've obviously just been eating away at the leaves. So I'm just going to pick these guys up and put them back in the bin. There may be a big family reunion tonight. And that's it, 1.5 of these bins full. Now I leave this mesh on the top because I'll put some leaves and some food scraps on there, and as the cocoons hatch and as those, I'm bound to have missed some worms, they'll just move their way up into through the grid, the mesh. And once in the mesh, then they're very easy. It's very easy then to remove them and add them to the worm bins. That's it.